Be at the hotel.
I had a really deep spiritual connection. As soon as I reached out to touch the wall, when my fingers hit the wall, a tingle went down my entire arm. And so that was really cool, and I kind of felt like God was talking to me.
When anyone speaks to Rashi graduates, and you ask, tell me about Rashi, inevitably the first thing that they're going to talk about is being in Israel. It's a life-changing experience for them.
You see something on their faces that wasn't there before.
All the years at Rashi, they have learned about Israel, and to actually be and visit those places and live what they have studied.
It's immeasurable.
This is the same place that our ancestors walked and felt and breathed and were in. This is a whole body spiritual experience that we want to prepare them for, to have them participate in through singing, through modern Hebrew, through Torah, through tefillah. It's all part of the same thing. That's their tziyun, that's their marker, that's their connector to our people and to our land.
Today will be a great day. We will meet the students from Israel.
We're going to play game with the ball. I give you the ball and you say your name and what you like to eat.
Okay. My name is Maddie and I like to eat chicken salad. Okay. My name is Will and I like to eat ice cream.
We have this relationship with the kids in Haifa.
The Leo Boeck children visit all the classes from kindergarten throughout, and they build these connections with the students. They develop this sense and love of Israel from the time they're 5 years old.
I actually meet with first grade and we compose a prayer. Then that becomes part of the first grade tefillah. Then it becomes part of our routine, a prayer for Israel.
Through the years, they learn all about the geography of Israel, the people and the struggles of Israel, as well as how they practice their religious traditions, how they learn Hebrew, what Israel means to them.
It's supposed to represent the hand of God, and a lot of people will hang it over their bed or on their wall in their room.
And the subtle exposure that they have to aspects about Israel without even knowing it, whether it's learning the language, interacting with native Hebrew speakers in the form of their teachers, all the way to 8th grade where they really get to the depth of the Shoah and the formation of the State of Israel.
These kids at Rashi are getting, not just through the coursework, but through the relationships they're building, an incredible bond to the land.
Rashi School prepares our students in how to respect all kinds of Judaism.
כולם שמחים. מה זה שמחים? שמח?
It's a mission to explore the language and through that language to learn about the heritage. It's a connection to their Jewish identity, and that's part of who we are.
All the units that we're learning is just to feel where we're coming from and what our connection between learning Hebrew and to be Jewish.
Gadol, Katan, Lemala, Lemata.
They're acting it out. They're dancing about Israel. This year's dance, the kids are mouthing He Medinat Israel. This is the state of Israel. They're bringing the Hebrew words they've been studying in class to life through music.
Israel is such a capstone experience because it brings Hebrew language, it brings the history, it brings the social studies of understanding a modern country.
To go experience it firsthand is invaluable.
It's just a unique opportunity to really see the Jewish homeland.
Everything that they have learned throughout the years is brought to life for them in their visit in Israel in the 8th grade.
We learned so much about really old Israel, the first and second temples, the Tanakh, but it's also important to learn about the modern state of Israel.
At the beginning, when we teach them about Israel, they think of Israel as being kind of old and not modern.
We aren't so different than the U.S. and the Rashi kids.
The continuity from biblical times to today, that arc in history is part of who we are.
They both from two different parts of the world agree.
Both of us are Jews, and we believe in the same things.
It's one thing to learn about something, but it's another thing to meet people from that place, and they can teach you even more stuff than you could learn out of a textbook or a presentation.
I'm feeling more Israeli and Jewish than ever because all these prayers together, it's so cool when we together. It's like more powerful, I think. I don't know why.
They form relationships. That is a whole added dimension to it that you don't have if you're just visiting as a tourist.
What it leaves our children with is not just an experience of this wonderful land and this wonderful 8th grade trip, but Israel becomes to them a place where they know people and where they have a bond with people.
From the moment that they get off the plane, they're seeing places that they've seen pictures of or heard about.
I know the stories of people kissing the ground when they get there.
They said, oh, look at the Hebrew on the roadsides and the Hebrew on the storefronts, and they spoke about everything coming together, that their learning was coming together.
They're hearing a lot of the same stories on the trip, but they're hearing it in the site where the stories took place.
One child looked at me and said, I feel like I've come home. And she said, no, really, I feel like I've come home.
The kids have had such an immersive experience there.
Experiences that can never be taught within the walls of the school.
One of the experiences on the trip is them waking up at 3:30 in the morning to hike Masada.
All the students yell off into the valley below.
They hear the echo rumbling across the other hills there, and they feel like they're connecting with the ancient Jews who fought and died there.
Floating in the Dead Sea is fun. Kids enjoy it.
We were one day hiking in the Golan, and we were talking about Rachel the poetess, and one of the students literally floored the guide because he said, oh, I know, we studied this poem with Mr. Raffeld. We can quote it, and they did.
You never know what's going to inspire these kids.
A Rashi student understands what it means to be Jewish in the deepest sense. Connection to Israel, connection to social justice, connection to something bigger than themselves.
There's such an incredible outpouring and excitement in the school the day the 8th graders come back from Israel. It's just a feeling of unity.
When we've just experienced something, it's beautiful and it's part of us. What I say all the time to students here is whatever it is, Israel, tefillah, prayer, I want to load up their hard drive so when they need things, it's there.
I felt like Rashi really prepared me for being able to meet Israelis when I went there on my own. I felt comfortable speaking. I understood that being Jewish meant being able to speak Hebrew because it was our language, and there were elements of Judaism that I wouldn't have understood if I hadn't been able to speak it.
They really can say, I've been through Israel and have a taste of it, and it's so important to us to have that be something that they reach back to later on in life.
You see that permanent legacy, that permanent image of who I am as a Jew and as a young adult, and now I need to carry it forward.
With my family, I was more touring, but this we got to be with the kids from Haifa and Leo Boeck.
To hear all the opinions of other kids your same age, it's really special.
Just kind of showed me that Jews all across the world were saying the same prayers in the same place and all collecting together.
So when they're forming a political or a religious opinion about Israel, they're really thinking about their own connection and their place. I want Israel to be part of their core.
I've done this 4 years in a row now, and I never don't get goosebumps. You crawl into this cave on your belly, and then you get into this large carved out room that is 2,000 years old. We turn out all of our lights, and we sing Hine Matov Umanaim. How good is it for brothers and sisters to be together? And it gets louder and louder and louder, and then we stop. And you can hear our voices, and it feels like the voices of the past echoing within that small cave. And you come out of there changed.